Hey everybody, it's Jeremy again. I am back with another Life by the Square Inch video, and I am trying to wrap up the My 30-Day World challenge that was put out by, in conjunction with the Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin Kickstarter from the guys at Absolute Tabletop. I definitely have fallen behind. I'm going to try to answer 3 more questions here, and that should leave just one more video after this with 3 questions, and it should bring me up to the finish. So today I'm going to be answering the questions for days 25, 26, and 27. So first up, question number 25, what is the most misunderstood playable race? The first section I'm going to talk about is, of course, Rossbeam. Now, both the Kongans, which are the ape-like race, and the Casbo, which are the cat-like race, are seen as more beast than human, by many, or at least beast than humanoid. And they tend to come from more tribal cultures and from more isolated parts of Rossbeam. But another misunderstood race is the Angor. Now, this is a sub-race of the Orc that has kind of left their savage, conquest-focused lifestyle of their brethren behind them in favor of the advances of civilization. They have cities, laws, farm, they farm the land, they produce exports, and they create art. However, many of those that they would have trade with kind of refuse to ever see them as anything more than simply orcs. The second setting is Arath. Now, the dwarves in Arath are probably the most misunderstood of the player races on both sides of the planet. They're both incredibly insulary and very secretive. Their knowledge is well guarded within the confines of the clan. And these clans operate kind of in a similar fashion as to a company or a mafia family, and they're not very tolerant of outsiders. The third setting is Acid Rain. Once more, this is kind of an alternate Earth setting, so there aren't really any races aside from human, but it certainly could be fun to play the misunderstood criminal, the person who definitely did something wrong to wind up here, but they did it for the right reasons. You know, the thief with the heart of gold trope works decently well for player characters in this setting. The fourth setting is Dowrenland. Now, in Dowrenland, the Kassir are certainly misunderstood by most of the rest of those that live here. They are the elves of the setting, but they aren't quite what you might expect. Their physiology actually changes based around the environment that they're in, usually aligning itself with the natural order of that environment. So in the forest, which is their home, they have antlers and their legs are more like that of a deer. They're bending forward at the knee or bending backwards rather at the knee and having hooves instead of feet. But in and around water, they tend to develop blue scaly skin and gills and webbed appendages and things. So the fifth setting is Caldera. Now, without question, the most misunderstood playable race in Caldera are the Dorathians. Now, these are the Native American analog for this setting, and they're actually the descendants of the people that once thrived in this area before the Reckoning occurred. Their closeness to the magic-saturated natural world around them has actually caused many of them to take on animalistic or fae-like qualities. Feathers, horns, hooves, strange colored eyes. But the Easterners who are now settling the Caldera territory often view these traits as actually demonic, which fits in very neatly with their religious beliefs and their worldview. The sixth setting is Chrome City. Again, this is a setting within a setting, being set within Harbinger from Absolute Tabletop. So I don't really have any races that I've personally put forward for it. But that being said, there are the Forgeborn that are meant to be somewhat kind of replicant-type beings, from my understanding. And since Blade Runner is definitely a huge source of inspiration for Chrome City, I'm very, very eager to kind of get my hands on the next version of the playtest, to which these Forgeborn just kind of see what they're really all about. And I think they're going to be included in the next one, so I'm looking forward to it. The final setting is Momentum. Now, the Reborn are going to be a rare option for players in Momentum. These ether-powered constructs are actually made by or are made for breathless elves who wish to prevent what will happen once they entirely lose their corporal form. Now, instead of becoming a gaunt, which is kind of an ether ghost, they are put through a ritual that actually installs their spirit into an artificial body. This process, however, wipes away all of the memories and knowledge that they had in life. They quite literally are reborn. So that does it for question number 25. Moving right on to question number 26. What deities dwell in your realm? Are they involved? First up is Rostvin. Now, Rostvin has a very large pantheon, covering a wide array of domains and with all manner of phenomena kind of attributed to their names. Now, I borrowed some from our own mythologies, some from already published settings, and many that I actually made up myself. But during the era of Rostvin's history that we usually play D&D in, the Treaty of Kisramin it's kind of been damaged. And this has allowed the gods to actually begin affecting the mortal realm in limited ways. Because of this, they champion mortals whose ideals are in line with their own and ask them to kind of carry out their own agendas on the material plane. The second setting is Arath. Now, the deities of Tanthara are a lot more hands-off. So there's not really a strong religious focus for much of the population here. The suns are seen as, by some at least, as gods. You've got Quena, the unmoving one, or the south sun, which kind of remains stationary and is used in navigation. You've got Karask, the demon eye, or the fire bearer, and that is the largest sun, and it marks the time of the day. And then you have Roletta, which is the quiet one, or little sister, and it is the smallest and actually marks the changes of the seasons. Now, on Hitust, there is much more acknowledgement of the gods and their impact on life there. The third setting is Acid Rain. Since this takes place in a version of Earth, the only deities who would really be worshipped by the faiths, by the people here, would be the faiths from our own world. However, whether or not they're involved with what happens is going to be entirely up to the GM. Downerland is the fourth setting. Now, deities in Downerland is not really something that I've put very much effort into thus far, and I don't know that I really will. Since it's intended to kind of be a crossroads of different worlds, I figure it's really kind of an individual character question, but aside from answering the prayer spells of divine casters, there really aren't any deities that are involved much in really what's going on in the setting itself. The fifth setting is Caldera. Now, the Caldera territory is fairly divided on the subject of gods. The Dorathians believe in a pantheon of old gods, that they're very nature-based, very animalist, very totemic in its roots. And adversely, the Easterners are monotheistic. They believe in a goddess known as Luz. This religion is very much based on Catholicism in many regards. And the deities of both of these faiths certainly hold sway in the goings-on of this land, but they're not usually quite at odds with one another as their devotees tend to be. The sixth setting is Chrome City. I'm not aware of anything regarding deities within the scope of Harbinger itself, though it's kind of still in its playtesting phase, so we'll just have to see. Chrome City itself has very little, if no faith at all, really going on with it. The seventh and last setting is Momentum. Now, in Momentum, the gods play a huge role. Albeit it's kind of one that is post-mortem. So the Colosseas are also called the God Giants, and their remains are scattered all over the world. Many of the people here actually settle in and amongst these remains, and their generally held belief is that it was the God Giants who actually set this world into motion, and that most of the world itself is comprised of what they left behind. So there's an expansive mythology that I am currently working on that will be common knowledge to the characters who actually live here. So that does it for question number 26. The third and final question that we're going to cover with this video is question number 27. Do any people of your world revere nature? How deeply? So, first up is Rostvin. Yes, definitely in Rostvin. You have the usual elves, druids, etc., that revere nature itself as a force in the world. And for many, that reverence runs pretty deep. There's also Elona, who is the goddess of nature and plants, and she has no shortage of followers. The second setting is Arath. Nature isn't revered in this setting in a real positive connotation that the term may usually kind of bring up. Any respect that nature is given is almost always in a form of fear more. What nature will do to you if you aren't prepared and aware enough whenever you encounter it. And this belief is pretty well ingrained in most of the people who live here by necessity. The third setting is Acid Rain. I don't think anyone in Cadian's Keep, really reveres nature, at least not in any meaningful way. The fourth setting is Dowrenland. Baja is a sort of Oberon figure in this setting, and he has 4 wives, one for each season. And as each season has a queen, she too has her people who all serve under this king. And they're all very heavily based on the different kinds of fae, and thus they have a very deep revere for nature. The Kasir have the mother of spring. The fairy folk have the mother of summer. The centaurs have the mother of autumn, and the dryads have the mother of winter. The fourth setting is Caldera. Now, the Dorathians, as well as those that they kind of view as their distant kin, the Wood Elves, the Centaurs, the Minotaurs, and the Satyrs, all have a reverence for nature. For some of them, it can run very, very deep, as their religious beliefs tend to kind of be based in nature. The fifth setting is Chrome City. Chrome City is a jungle of concrete, steel, glass, and neon lights. There really isn't much in the way of nature to even be found. So if people see it, they might revere it, possibly. However, I really doubt that there's going to be any kind of a deep connection to it. The last and final setting is Momentum. As the denizens of Momentum kind of believe that their natural world is the literal remains of their deities, most of them tend to have a reverence for it. However, this certainly runs deeper for some than it does for others. Though the elves, for example, have a high respect for nature usually, the high elves themselves tend to kind of overlook the fact that they're actually polluting the seas of essence, because their production of ether tends to lead to a more spiritual connection in their minds, and it happens to be incredibly lucrative, so they seem to be willing to overlook it. So that's question 27. Which means that's all 3, 25, 26, and 27. And so we have come to the end. If you like what you're hearing, go ahead and hit the like button. Maybe drop a subscription. Feel free to please check out the rest of the stuff that's on the channel. We have lots of live play games, trying to put out some more video content about crafting and just discussing RPGs in general. So, yeah, stick around and check things out. And until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.